I'm thinking of, Ozzy's last show. You mentioned you were there talking to him. What did he say? Wow.
The Sunset Strip in the 80s and the 70s, but especially the 80s, was successful. I struggled for such a long time. And he says, Ozzy passed. It was the same feeling that I had when Randy Rhoads died, and I woke up with the plane hitting the bus.
That led to my gift from God. I mean, I think I got a gift from God the day I got arrested for that DUI. Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. All right, everybody. Todd Crandall, the original sober triathlete, with another Racing for Recovery podcast. And I have Mr. Rudy Sarzo on with me today. How are you, sir?
I'm blessed, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm good. I know the word honored gets thrown out a lot doing shows like this, but I truly am honored to talk to you today. I've been a fan of yours for years. I'm already in my mind. I'm trying to think of questions that you haven't been asked 1,000 times over. So I hopefully I asked some things that have never been asked of you before. But again, it's a true honor to have you on the show today.
I think it's going to be simple because I rarely get requested to do sobriety podcasts. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. Not talking about the same old subjects.
Correct. I'm aware of that. So, well, you brought this up. Let's start with the topic of sobriety. I'd like to know how you have avoided drug addiction, why you chose to avoid drug addiction, and the tragedies that you've seen from drug addiction.
Yeah, it was recently that something that came across my algorithm in social media. I think it was YouTube, and brought up the possibility that I was a Sigma male, not an alpha, not a beta, but a Sigma, right in the middle. And I went, let let me check into this. So what I'm getting at is that I was never really much of a packer, somebody who was with this pack or that pack. I've always been a very independent thinker, independent believer, independent in my faith because I am a Christian, but I also believe, being a Christian, I believe deeply in free will. And other people have their free will to do things. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to follow them or be part of their journey, but I accept it. So yeah, that's your choice. I got my own choice too. In order for me to freely have my own choice, I have to let other people have their own choices too, because it's not just all about me. It's about all of us, and I am more interested in what connects us, what brings us together, rather than what separates us. But also at the same time, being independent to believe that. Not to all of a sudden somebody else come in with their own perception and say, this is what you got to believe in, this is what you have to follow, you know. And so being, I, I am an alcoholic. I've been sober for 28 years. When I first stopped drinking, I thought that I was just like my dad, who in the late 60s, one day that beer that was at the dinner table was never there again. And we never talked about it. It's just he stopped drinking. And I thought, okay, I'm probably just like my dad, who is just gonna stop drinking and carry on with life. But then around COVID, when COVID happened, I started going more deep into the internet because that was my only source of connecting with the outside world, you know. And and I came across a few Zoom AA sites, And I said, you know what? Let me check this out. Let me see what humanity is going through. And I realized that I am an alcoholic, and which was a godsend because I got to tell you, I struggled for such a long time to not only get back to my original highest level of spirituality that I had. Uh, I wrote a book a few years ago, and I mentioned it in the book. I wrote it about 20 years ago that at one point I was sleeping on the floor, literally on the floor, in shag carpet with the sheet of the singer in the band that I was playing with, which turned out to be the singer in the band Quiet Riot, Kevin DeBro, in his spare bedroom apartment. Uh, and and I uh, I made peace with God. I have finished reading both the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I found this tranquility, this peace of mind, that just disconnected me from any concerns or material worries or anything. It was just about my relationship with God. And I made peace with God that as long as my fingers were kept moving, I was going to keep moving forward and trying to become a professional musician. And but if it never happened, my relationship with God was more important than anything else, you know. And that happened in 1981, right before I joined Ozzy Osbourne, in April of 1981. And so, from 81 to the time that I decided to stop drinking in 1997, I have kind of like my faith had been challenged, and I was still faithful and a Christian. I kept reading the Bible, but I was disconnected with that moment that I surrendered, and attending the AA meetings and becoming a member of AA because I am AA gave me the path back to that once again because I realized that sobriety is not just about drinking. It's a mental state of clarity, and because even if I don't have a drink, I'm still an alcoholic, and the same alcoholic mind that led me to my first drink and the second drink and almost drinking as a lifestyle, associating success with drinking, even though my success was not I was not under the influence of alcohol when I made successful records or successful performances. It was the celebration of it. Now, okay, now you have success from doing this, so let's celebrate. And of course, drinking was a major part of that. That all those decisions that I made were bad decisions, were actually alcoholic decisions that I had made in my life. So I learned from that, and that was always kind of like I am very observant, and I was outside of the pack. I never thought that it was a good idea to, if you want to join a a certain group of successful people that might be under the influence, either alcohol or drugs or whatever, to imitate them. No, which was really a challenge once I started playing with big bands because you would not be trusted unless you partake. So I learned how to fake it a bit. Fake it, meaning that I'll have that drink in front of me and I put it to my lips. And by the end of the night, I had finished the drink rather than pouring many drinks. But with time, it's just that faking it became a reality. And it got to a point that I had to quit drinking because I looked at myself and I said, you know what? God has not blessed me to get to this point for me to throw it away with alcohol.
Wow. This I have so many questions based on just what you said right there. I love that we are now going in this direction. One of the questions that I you kind of answered when you were talking about that moment being in Kevin's on the shag
Yeah,
carpet,
yeah.
on the shag carpet and everything, I've heard you describe you prayed to God on something about, hey, show me a path or something you were struggling. Is that the same thing you were talking about?
Yes,
And then
yes.
right away,
Yeah,
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 okay,
yeah, yeah. That's yeah, yeah. That was this same moment of I call epiphany, and it
yeah,
was just like this. You showered. I was engulfed in this peaceful frequency. It's a frequency, you know, and it emanated from my heart rather than my brain. It was just like like seeing the person that you eventually you're gonna get married. That your heart just goes poof. That's what I mean. So you're not thinking with this. You know,
yeah.
it's not about a. It's all about love. The brain is about sex. The heart is about
Yeah.
love. You know.
Yeah, and I hear you.
Yeah.
It's almost it's another version of almost like a sobriety date. When I hear you talking like this, it's that awakening where you're like, I'm done with this. Whether your prayers answered, you find Christ, you find your significant other, you ask God for, hey, make this dream happen that I eventually am with Ozzy Osbourne, whatever. It's that type of feeling. I hear that in you. I
Yeah.
see it on your face.
Yeah. 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 Ozzy passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I was in Birmingham. I got to go and play, but the most important thing was that I got to go and thank him and Sharon for changing my life. And when I got the news, it was a friend of mine texting me, giving me condolences. I did not even know what he was talking about because I didn't have the TV on. And he says Ozzy passed. It was the same feeling that I had when Randy Rhoads died
Yeah.
and we were on tour, so we were present at the site of the crash. We got hit by the plane. We were in the tour bus asleep. So that was traumatic, different because it was a plane crash. But once the dust settles of the loss, it's the same loss. It's a loss of a loss of a person that it was changed my life completely.
Yeah.
That when I had that moment at my epiphany and I surrendered control and I gave it to God and said, it's in your hands. This is, I'm just gonna be I'm just gonna be focused in my prayers and in all my blessings and my relationship with God rather than to be focused on trying to be a rock star or any material things or anything like that. And the sign being like fingers are moving, just keep going. Uh, it took me a couple of weeks to really get to the core of why I was feeling the way I did about Ozzy's passing, and it's I came to the conclusion that he is one of the three people, and this is the fact that were responsible for changing my life as a musician from that moment of this is how it happened. And this is a synopsis. I get the call, I get the audition, I pass the audition. Ozzy asked me, "Do you want the gig?" He's responsible for. He offered me. You want it? I said, "Of course, yes." Okay. Immediately, we went over to Sharon's family's home in the Hollywood Hills. They needed to get to know me quickly because they were getting ready to hit the road in 10 days. And of course, it was Randy Rhoads that recommended me. So, talking about the three people, Randy, Ozzy, and Sharon. Uh, so we had like a little get together, they're talking and they're giving me, you know, drinks and Randy says, don't, just keep it cool, basically, don't get drunk, basically is what he says, no worry, And so everybody goes to their rooms and it's just Ozzy and me playing pool and and he takes a look at me. Now I was, destitute, I could not afford to buy clothing. As a matter of fact, back in the day, us starving musicians would raid the girls that we would go out with. We'll meet at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, which was our social network back in the 70s, and they would take us home because I didn't have a bed. So and then in the morning I would go through their closet and see anything I could wear that they had. So that was my
That's
wardrobe.
great.
That's
Yeah.
we were all skinny. Everybody, the girls were skinny, the guys were skinny. So we
Yeah.
were, all those clothes were interchangeable. And so Ozzy takes a look at me. Now, of course, Ozzy, he had been, by then he was already a legend, an icon. Former member of Black Sabbath. So he was educated and experienced in certain uh, fundamentals of being a rock star. And he wants the guys in the band to look as good as possible, because it's a reflection on the whole band, the whole picture. So he takes a look at me and says, "Man, you look like shit. You need some rock star clothes." And he goes to his bedroom, brings out his suitcase, and just pours it on the pool table. And he says, "Take what you want." And I'm going,
Wow.
nobody has ever done that for me. I'm looking at these clothes and I recognize them from album covers and photos in magazines. And I was just like, I can't take that. That's from such record. And this is so, so, so he just yelled at me, just grab it, grab something. Because I was being hesitant about anything. And so, I asked him for a ride back to the floor that I was supposed to be sleeping that night in Kevin's apartment, and he goes, "Oh no, no, I don't drive. I can't drive you there." So he points at a bungalow in the property, and he says, "You can go sleep there." And I go, "Okay, I have no choice. There's 1981, no Ubers or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
stuck, and even then I couldn't afford one. So so here I am stuck. So I go in this bungalow, really beautiful, and there's a brass headboard bed, and I go, wow, this is nice. So I just kept my clothes on because I didn't want the security guard in the property to find me there and say, "Who are you?" and just kick me out. And at least I got my clothes on. And so I wake up in the morning and it's Sharon knocking on the door saying, "Rudy, come on, join us for breakfast." So I went out, to where the breakfast uh, next in the kitchen is, and the whole family is sitting there having breakfast, and there was an empty chair, and I sit down, and the family dog comes by, big Great Dane named Jet, after the record company, Jet Records, which
Mhm.
Don Arden, which was sitting next to me, the owner of the label, and the patriarch, Sharon's dad, and the dog starts eating my breakfast, and he finishes my breakfast, and Don says to me, "Jet likes you. You must be okay." so
That's awesome.
So I moved in. Sharon says, "Yeah, you can stay in the bungalow for as long as you want." I was living with them on the road, off the road. They were incredibly generous with me, and they had like this garage, with like just like a porch, and they had like all these Mercedes and Don Arden's Rolls Royce, and she says, "Okay, you can take any of those cars, just don't take that." Right? I said, "No problem." So all of a sudden, I went from not having a car, I'm driving a Mercedes around town, just keeping it cool, not being, that's one thing. You have to be respectful
Yeah.
of people's generosity, and be grateful, and all of that. So, I that was my attitude. Just be grateful, be respectful, and all of that. So, yeah.
It's interesting. You're bringing up things that at Racing for Recovery and my own sobriety, I think empathy, humility, and
Mhm. Oh,
gratitude are the
absolutely.
foundation, right? Right. And
Absolutely.
I hear the gratitude pouring out of you. And I and my next question to you is when you're describing this, I'm interested in your mindset. Like you have to be aware. You're aware of the opportunity. I understand that. Are you connecting that back to that prayer to God and how it's answered, and now you're starting to see the future and what that possibly is going to look like?
That's really interesting about the future because the the one thing that I learned really quickly once my prayer was answered, that my imagination of the future could never match the magnitude of God's blessing.
Wow.
So I learned that
Wow.
very quick because I found myself in a situation that it was so unimaginable to me
Yeah.
because I didn't have a reference of what it was like to be in that world. I went from zero to now I'm in a huge part of this huge family, a family of, because it wasn't really a band as much as it was a family, because there was a trust circle
Wow.
and very small, very tight. You have to be like, you just could not bring somebody that you thought might be detrimental representing you, because whoever you bring into that circle is your own representation, which to me, Randy Rhoads, he took the risk of bringing me into that circle that he had been a part of by then about 2 years now, or a year and a half. Yeah. And so it's, you know what, I always, from that point on, I leave it up to God, because I know that
Wow.
if I ask for, see, I'm very generic, and it's almost like, rather than to ask, I'm grateful.
Yep.
I just come in gratitude, and I know better than to say, to be exact of what I want, because his plan is so much bigger than anything I can imagine.
Powerful. This is powerful, Rudy. Did you and Randy have some of these conversations just between you two? Like, oh my God, look at this, and what a gift and a blessing.
That is really interesting because he was brought up in the church. Uh, I think it was Protestant or something like that. Uh, back in the day, we didn't talk about religion, politics, or it was all about music. And I think music was a reflection of our beliefs. Uh, when I stand on stage, I never, ever, ever think of or wonder, what do they believe in? What's their
Yeah.
political, inclinations? No, I'm there to entertain. I'm there to bring people together for one,
Yep.
for that one collective consciousness. That to me is any band. A band presents a consciousness through their music, through their lyrics, sometimes through their image, and people gravitate towards it. People from all perceptions, points of references in life, age. You can go to, let's say, a U2 concert or a Rolling Stones concert, two different bands, completely, you know, consciousness, but they will have a huge demographic, male, female, and age demographic. It's gigantic. Uh, they'll even have broad cultural appeal. These are bands that will tour the South America and be playing stadiums, and playing stadium in Asia, play stadiums in, of course, America, play stadiums in Europe, where people are sharing the same experiences, even though they're far away from each other, but they're still connected.
I'm thinking of, Ozzy's last show. You mentioned you were there talking to him.
Mm.
What did he say? Was he thankful that he got to meet you and you were there at the start? And what was that conversation
Well,
like?
I mean, it all started with them inviting me. I received through Tom Morello, who was the music director of for putting together the bands, because they were like uh, what they call super groups. Musicians from different bands gathered together to play these certain songs. and then the rest were actual bands, you know, bands that
Yep.
all the full members play their music and so on, and like Metallica and Slayer and Pantera and so on. And so it was a very heartfelt uh, invitation. So I
Yep.
knew, where they were coming from, with their heart. And I was blown away, by their generosity of me being part of this once in a lifetime event. Of all the people from that era of the Randy Rhoads version of Ozzy, I was the only one that participated. Perhaps
Wow.
because I was the link to Randy because I had played with him in Quiet Riot you
Hmm.
know, and so on. So, and he's the one who introduced me to Sharon and Ozzy. But for whatever reason, I was just grateful that they invited me and grateful to be there.
I know you've been asked about this a lot, and I really didn't want to ask you, but I'm going to because you're talking about this. When I read your book, and it's been a while since I read it,
Mm.
when you talk about that unfortunate day with the accident with Randy, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't there some hesitation for him to even get in that plane to go up in the first place?
Not that I recall, because what happened was I was sleeping in my bunk when the bus arrived. It was a house that it's in a neighborhood where there's landing strips. So people, they live there and then they get on their plane and they need to go somewhere. It's in Kissimmee, outside of Orlando, and that's where the headquarters of the bus company that we were using was based out of. So the driver the night before had driven directly from Knoxville, Tennessee, Knoxville to Kissimmee, outside of Orlando, straight, nonstop. And so he gets there around 7:30 in the morning, and he invites the members of the group who had gotten out of the bus, our tour manager and our keyboard player Don Airy. They were outside of the bus, and Randy and Rachel, uh, who also passed away in the crash, Rachel Youngblood. Uh, they were out. Meanwhile, Tommy Aldridge and Ozzy and Sharon and myself, we remain in the bus sleeping. And from what I was told, because I was asleep in the bunk, uh, Jake Duncan and Don Airy were invited first by the bus driver to take a little joyride, go up on a plane and take a look at the scenery. And they did. One thing that I must mention also is that the driver's estranged wife was traveling with us. We had just started the tour. Knoxville was the second show we did, Atlanta being the first. And so he had picked her up right before we began the next tour, the next leg of the tour, section and portion of the tour. And they were the bus driver and his wife were he was trying to patch up things with her, and they were having difficulties in their marriage and so on. And so he takes up, Jake, our tour manager, and Don Airy up on the plane, and they land. And then the bus driver slash pilot invites Rachel, and he goes. So the pilot goes to our tour manager. Listen, I'm aware that Rachel has a heart condition, so I'm just going to take it easy. And Randy hears that and he goes, "Oh, well, in that case, if Rachel's going up, I'm going to bring my camera and take pictures." Uh, So Randy goes back into the bus and he wakes me up to invite me to join him. And that's the only time that I did not join Randy in an adventure, mainly because I grew up in Florida. The last thing I wanted to do is get up on a on a plane to take a look at swamp, basically,
You're right.
especially in,
Yeah.
in those days, the middle, that was right off the Everglades. It's built now. This is 44 years ago. That area is very much built. Back then, it was still swamps, outside of that where the homes were. And it's like, no, I'm not really interested. So I just pull up the curtain to my bunk and I went back to sleep. And I woke up with the plane hitting the bus. You know, yeah, yeah. I appreciate that you read the book.
Yeah. Yeah, and yes, I did. That's where we first got connected. It was years ago. You don't
Mm,
remember that, but that's why I remembered you all those years ago. Again, talking about your spirituality, do
mm.
you think that was another blessing from God that you gave you the mindset of saying, "Oh, I don't want to do that"? Do you think that way or no?
Oh, I mean, my whole life, every day, it's a blessing. So I never take anything as not being a blessing. You know, and everything,
Yeah.
even having our conversation right now, it's a blessing because people will get to hear this. And also, even if nobody gets to hear this, we're talking about it.
Absolutely.
You know,
You're right. I even when you're describing, meeting Ozzy and stuff, that in a way, that's kind of like how I'm looking at you. It's like, wow, I've listened to this guy my entire life as a kid, a young
Mhm.
man, an adult, and then here we are having a conversation, and we haven't even talked about music yet. It's just
Mm.
about good living, really. So that's where the honor comes in.
Yeah, it's all about gratitude. Why, people say, well, why is this guy so grateful? Well, how much time do you have?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we? Do you want to? I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about Kevin. I know
Mm.
Kevin was huge, great friend of yours. When I think of Kevin, I wonder how he felt when he had Randy, he had you, he had his band, and how that maybe didn't go the way he wanted. And I've always wondered like what kind of toll that took on him.
Yeah, that is a really good question, and it's something that I uh, from being there, experiencing. Of course, you can never really get inside of somebody's brain unless they offer what they're thinking. I I I don't like analyzing people because it's none of my business. It's their life, it's their decisions, it's their free will to do and say certain things. Uh, of course, when you're in a band, it's a business, and certain bad decisions, the rest of the group becomes collateral damage. But then again, this is something that you have to take into consideration when you put together the family that you pick, which is the band. When you're born into a family, you have no choice. This is your mom, this is your dad, this is your siblings, your uncles, whatever. That's it. You got no choice about that. But when you put a band together, it is really a family, but it's the family that you pick, and it's it has to be based on trust. Just like with a family that you're born into, you're a baby. So you have no choice but to trust your mom and dad to take care of you and raise you. And the same thing with a band. You have to have a trust that people are going to show up. They're not going to be detrimental to your career uh, by actions or words. And once that starts happening, you have choices. Sometimes It's not fixable. It's not fixable. There's especially one thing that I found on bands that came out of the Sunset Strip. The Sunset Strip in the 80s and the 70s, but especially the 80s, was a cesspool of of drugs and alcohol addiction. They were the people that were successful. The quickest way for somebody who was, let's say, a somebody who was a drug dealer, in the quickest way for one of those people to get inside that circle of a successful musician was to befriend them and provide them, you know, to the point, because now you're in that network. Now you start meeting other successful musicians, and before you know it, you are like the connection. You know. And I'm going to start talking more of a street terms here, because we're talking about a very street environment. It's like this. You 1 year, let's say March, you're broke. Your first record just came out. November, you're number one. I knew how to handle it because I already by then, with Quiet Riot, I had the spiritual center. I have been through that with
Yeah.
Ozzy. It's like
Yeah.
climbing up a mountain. Your first climb, you're gonna be, wow, this is, it's all new experience. Second time you climb that mountain, you go, oh yeah, I know that tree. I know, okay, I know this type of tree. I know how the elevation, how we are, and what's coming up next, and what the challenges might be to get to the very, very top. Because I did that with Ozzy. Hey, 1981, from 1981 to 1982, I was playing in Ozzy. We did the Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman tours. 1982, within the same week, I recorded a Ozzy record called "Speak of the Devil," which is the Black Sabbath re-recordings, and then I did some of the initial recordings that wound up on Metal Health, but I was still a member of Ozzy, so it was the band got renamed Quiet Riot when I returned to the group. Meanwhile, at that point, it was called Dubrow, which is the band that I was playing in when I was living with Kevin. Yeah, and so in that week, I recorded two multi-platinum records back to back.
Wow.
The following year, let's say the last time I played with Ozzy was September of 1982. November of 1983, we had a number one record. It was a very tight, compressed time capsule where all of this just happened. And the reason I was able to deal with it was because of my spiritual center, because things happen so fast. You have to have clarity and understand where the blessings came from. Not get influenced by the hanger-ons, the people that would say, "Hey, have some blow. Let me be your friend because you are famous and whatever." No, no, I don't want no. Go away. So,
Yeah.
but I know another blessing that I had was in 1981, right after, when I joined Ozzy in March. By September, I had met my wife to be,
Wow.
Rebecca, and we've been together since 1981, and we got married in 84. So we are 41 years married, you know, and
Congratulations.
thank you. So that really helped me from like straying meaning like going out there and, potential trouble of like, you're one night and you're bored or whatever, and, you might do something that you might regret, the next day, with alcohol or drugs or whatever. So, so because once we met, we were pretty much together, just enjoying each other's company and having fun. Yeah.
You know, Rudy, listening to you, the blessings that you have, even with this latest story about how you've navigated through a lot of the stuff that most people aren't really aware of back in on the Sunset Strip and everything. The magnitude of your blessings are profound. And even in everything else you've said, but the ability to navigate through, as you called it, the cesspool, that's a
Mhm.
blessing in of itself.
Uh, and it, like again, going back to the word of navigating, it means that you're there, you're going through it, but you just pass it. you
Yeah,
you're net docking.
yeah,
I'm not gonna land here and be part of this. And it's like, okay, I'm going through this. Okay, but good to see you. You just keep going.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I, yep. Yep. I hear you.
yeah,
Well understood. I get
yeah.
that. Let me ask you this. I know you're pretty fond of animals.
Hmm.
Where did that come from? And talk about anything you do with the care of animals.
Oh, I create awareness of animals indeed of being either fostered or just uh, rescued. Uh, that's my main action. It's just to create this certain awareness through social media and so on. And I also support certain charities who are involved in animal rescue and so on. So it's the unconditional love that you get, and I learned so
Yeah.
much from my little dog. She leads by actions.
Yeah, I went well, I'm vegan. I went vegan
Mm,
February 1st, 2000 what, 16. I do have a pet pig called Milo. He lives on a sanctuary now, but he lived in our house and the gifts or the blessings, I'll keep using your word, the blessings I got from that pig. We had cats and we had dogs, but that having a live pig living in your house with you, it really put things together on like equality. How you talked about this earlier. It's like we're all the same. We may have
mm,
different beliefs or whatever, but that reality of, hey, he's just a different version of what a cat and a dog feels. It really brought home,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that feeling, that
yeah,
unconditional love. Yeah,
yeah. I get it. I mean, ever since I watched Babe, I can't eat anything
yeah,
derivative of
yep,
of a little pig.
yeah,
It's like
right.
no,
Yep, I'm with you.
yeah,
Yep. Do you have a question for me at all? Like we've been talking, I don't want to keep
yeah.
hammering you with
I
questions.
am really fascinated by the training of what you do triathlon, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, is it something that you prepare for one, or are you always working out at that level, whether you have a competition, uh, if there's a goal of a certain competition on a certain date?
That's a good question, and I'm equating it to kind of what you do when you decide you're going to play the bass. You pick it up, you work at it nonstop, and you develop a talent, if you will. That's kind of like what it was for me with Ironman. This was back in 1999. I had a goal. I wanted to do an Ironman, so I trained really hard to achieve it. Found out I liked it. So I was very intense with training for it for a number of years. And now it's kind of like, I don't do as much training. But if I know I have a show or, equating that with a race, I know I can get through it. So I'm not as competitive with myself or other people anymore. I love the travel of doing Ironmans. I love the training of them, the benefits of physical exercise. Eating plants helps me to do all that. So it's I'm always prepared to do a race. It's just a different mindset that I have with doing them now.
At some point, were you doing competitive with others or personal best, or has it always been one or the other?
Well, I came from a hockey background and I was very competitive with hockey. But when I got into Ironman, I wasn't really competing with others. I got humbled very quickly doing Ironman because I wasn't as good maybe as I was at hockey, but I wasn't doing Ironman to be good at it. Ironman is what eventually led to the media covering my story and my life that led me to form my nonprofit, Racing for Recovery. So it kind of became a way to get the message out. Kind of like you're doing with animals, with your music and everything. It's just a platform for me to use in a productive manner.
Were you doing Ironman before you enter recovery, or vice versa?
Vice versa. I got sober April 15th of 93 after getting my third drunk driving charge. And thank God I never killed anybody. So that was blessing number one right there. And got into Ironman, as I said, about 6 years later. And that led to my gift from God. I mean, I think I got a gift from God the day I got arrested for that DUI. I also believe I got a gift from God when I had the notion to start doing Ironman. And then when it led to my life's purpose of serving others through Racing for Recovery, I believe those are some major blessings that God gave me. And I'm extremely thankful for those.
Do you think that you would have been able to compete either for personal best or against others? Uh, because if you told me that you had a hockey background, right? So
Yes.
you had not recovered yet while you were playing hockey.
Yep.
How much did that?
Yeah, I,
Yeah, oh no, I wanted to know how much did the addiction keep you from being your personal best during hockey?
wow. Good question. A lot. I don't, this is a kind of still of a sensitive subject. I don't know if I could have been something with hockey, but there was potential to do something with hockey, but my choices threw it away. So I gave that away. But again, I look back at God, I don't think God wanted me to be a hockey player. He allowed me to make the choices to throw that gift away that eventually let me use my athletic ability to do Ironman, which led to my life's purpose and service. So I can look back at it now and kind of go, oh, those were some of the messages that I missed during my addiction that in sobriety now I go, oh, I see that. It's crystal clear now.
What's more challenging, a contact sport like hockey or Ironman?
Great question. I'd say Ironman because Ironman, sports in general, is that there's a mental aspect of it, but you have teammates that can help you. With Ironman, this is all on your own. You have to get up and be disciplined to train on your own. When you're out there on the course, you're by yourself. We have people doing it around you, but you may only be around them for a couple of seconds. So it's more of a mental and spiritual aspect in Ironman. And physically, it's grueling, but it's more, you have to be mentally tough and use your spirituality in order to continue physically because it hurts physically. It'd be like playing the bass with all of your fingers are bleeding at the same time. It hurts.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see a parallel between being in a rock band and or being like a musician and being an Ironman, because
Yeah.
even though a band is a team, you take that
Hmm.
team, you go on tour with other teams. It's the same team that you're touring with. Uh,
Yeah.
like let's say a three-act bill. It would be the same three bands for a couple of months. I think it is that same sense of like you're competing. You The way I look at it is you're competing to be remembered,
Mm.
because it's a presentation, and one out of those three bands is the one that people are going to walk away saying these guys were great. And there's something special about reaching that level is something. Okay, when I started playing with Ozzy, outside of Sharon teaching me, the fundamentals of a classic heavy metal English band, the way that they present themselves on stage. You know, outside of that, nobody told me what to do. There's like an unspoken. If you're here, it's because you're who you are is what needs to happen.
Wow.
It's that piece of the puzzle that is missing. Once you find the piece of the puzzle that is missing, you don't mess with it to make it fit. It fits. So all the pieces fit. And that's the way that it was when I was touring with Ozzy. And what that creates is like it's a perfect image because there's no gaps, no cracks in between the pieces. It's all, and it's exactly what it's supposed to be, you know. And when you got something like that, nobody really sits down just to analyze it and say, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, or no, it's not even that. You just get there and you become inspired by everybody else, and it's like a
Yeah.
chain reaction of everybody racing each other to that level, And I read in a book one time, I forgot the name of the book, but about the relationship between men and women. Women test you in a classic relationship, and men challenge you. That's why, like, my best relationship with males is that the guys who want to make me play better, be a better musician, that I'll learn from them, that challenge me to be better, and just by that, it just makes the band better, you know. And if I look back at the women in my life, from my mom, the first lady I met, uh, she raised me and she tested me to know to make sure that I was going to survive. Once I became a man, that I was going to have certain qualities about me and certain knowledge about life. She was my teacher. Uh, and then, of course, your first girlfriend is going to test you. They're going to go, do you really love me? Well, show me. Yeah, they put you through all the tests. The,
Yeah.
most of the teachers that I had in school were female teachers. So they were always testing us to make sure that we retain whatever was being taught in school, and so on. And so once I got that perception straightened out, I stopped thinking, why can't my wife be more like me? Because she's not supposed
I heard you.
to.
Yeah, I heard you loud and clear.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And
I
that,
love your
yeah.
I love your putting the parallels, and now listening to you with the parallels with Iron Man and music.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, he's right. Like, well, I mean, my mom on a female level, my mom killed herself when I was 3 from drugs, which whatever, that's her thing. But I've had so many blessings with a female professor in college that without her support, I wouldn't have furthered my education. The mother of my kids, my personal assistant, the female coworkers I have at Racing for Recovery, you're building. I'm building a band. The staff that I have, male and female, I get challenged by some of the males, but you can tell the nurturing side from the females. They help you build the brand and the band, if you will, of Racing for Recovery. And I hear you, there are so many parallels in pursuing what God wants us to do, being dedicated, being committed, and using the proper resources to help that entity move forward.
Oh, absolutely. When you mention females helping you to build a brand, the best managers I ever had, uh, females. Sharon Osbourne,
Yep.
Trudy
Yeah.
Green with she managed White Snake, and she had like Aerosmith and a bunch of different bands. Uh, Wendy Dio, I was in the band Dio with,
Yeah.
with Ronnie, and they're perfect. As far management, I think that naturally women, uh, they have these qualities that know how to deal with business challenges, especially in the music business, and they understand it. Because they protect the artists. They have this motherly relationship with the band that the first time that I experienced that was with Sharon. She's younger than me, but I always felt protected by her in a motherly kind of way. And she was like that with Randy and the rest of the band, you know. And then she was like a lioness with the outside, the people that were trying to like take advantage of the band, especially Ozzy, And
Yeah.
she's always been like that.
Yeah, I've never met Sharon, but I've looked at her and I'm like, wow, what a businesswoman
Oh
who
yeah,
has done a lot. Yeah. I hope she writes a book someday.
I think she
Well, she
did.
did,
She
right?
did.
Didn't
She
she
did.
did? Yeah, she
I think
did.
she did.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't have to read the book to know that. I was there. The 1981, no cell phones or texting or anything like that. So she would be in her room. Uh, she would not leave the room in the hotel room, or you would just see piles of room service trays because she would just be there taking care of business because she traveled with
That's
us.
great.
To have a manager,
Yeah.
especially at the very beginning of the band, uh, traveling with you was the best, especially back in the days when we didn't have the connections that we have now with Zoom and cell phones and so on. It was a very one-on-one. You had to be there face to face to take care of any situation dealing with promoters or merchandisers or whatever.
I'm going to have another crack at a question that I don't think you get asked a lot, or maybe you do, but what advice do you have for someone who's pursuing anything and struggling to achieve their dream?
In a nutshell, I can only give them what worked for me. Is be prepared and let God take over.
Beautiful. Yeah. Rudy, I don't know really what else to ask you. This has been phenomenal. I'm honored to have you. Like I said before, I'm
I'm honored to
grateful
be
for
here.
this.
Thank you, Todd. I'm
Yeah.
honored.
It's been a pleasure, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. We'll keep in
Thank you.
touch.
God bless you.
All
Take
right,
care.
buddy. Take care.
Take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Racing for Recovery podcast. That was an awesome episode. With respect to social media, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. We're on all those platforms. Like and subscribe. My personal Instagram is Sober Ultraman. I will message you back. Don't forget the app is available through Racing for Recovery. Our live stream support group meeting every Thursday night at 6:30. Archived versions are on YouTube. Other podcasts that we've done are on the Racing for Recovery channel and my personal YouTube page as well. So check us out. Thank you again for tuning in to the Racing for Recovery podcast. As always, if you or a loved one is in need of improvement, doesn't have to be with just drugs and alcohol. If you want to live a better life, contact Racing for Recovery. Contact me for clinical counseling services. We're here to help you. Until next time, have a safe and sober life.